Introduction to Materials. I have given you a couple of handouts that do have some of the material from the PowerPoint. You do want to make sure you've taken really good notes from the PowerPoint on everything on here, because you will be taking a knowledge check when you finish this. You'll be allowed to use your notes on the knowledge check. However, if you get something wrong, you'll only be allowed to retake the knowledge check one time for a grade up to a 70. So you do want to take notes, good notes this first time through. So first of all, materials. They're the basics of what all engineers do. Everything we do is made out of materials. So every kind of engineer has to have an understanding of all the materials that are available out there. And in fact, there's 76,000 individual unique materials. And you can find them all listed under this web page that's right here. Think about all the materials that are even in this classroom. Wood, metal, plastic, all sorts of materials. Throughout history, we have defined history by the terms Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, because what we are able to do is limited by the materials we can produce and we can use. And in fact, even times in this country, we had times when we could only go so far with technology because it was the materials holding us back. Currently, we have the same thing. In many cases, for instance, solar power. The problem with solar power right now is it's still just a little too expensive. Hydrogen cells to power cars, like we're seeing some of these with like Tesla. We actually now have the technology to do some of these things, but we can't produce the materials in a reasonable price to make these materials available to everyone. Because the way design works and the way we move forward through time with new technologies is technology advances, and then that causes more materials to be made, and then maybe there's a scientific advancement, and then maybe back to some more materials, and it's always jumping around in these as we move forward through time. So, what makes up a material? We're going to start with the most basic thing, which is elements, back to chemistry class. We're going to break it down to atoms or particles, and we're going to look at elements from this first part here. And these are how we break down and classify elements. This is going to sound very familiar to chemistry class. Take a look at these properties, the physical properties and the chemical properties, and take notes on these, because these are how we classify elements into our three groups. These are the same three groups you talked about in chemistry. Metals cover this entire portion of the periodic table. Nonmetals are these small portion over here, and metalloids are the one in between. If you can't see this well on your notes, please take a little bit of time and color these in so you can see them better. Metal elements. Here's some examples of things made out of metal. We see metal all around. Here's some properties. Be sure that you can find all these on the table I gave you. And if the table's missing any of these, then you need to write down these in the notes. Here's some examples of some metals. Nonmetals. Again, here's some properties. These should be on the table, but copy down any that aren't on the table. And we see them everything. Glass and ceramics, gases like neon gas. Nonmetals are used everywhere as well. And then we have elements called metalloids, which they have both metal properties and non-metallic properties, such as silicon and carbon.